Jeffrey Lax joins us now, CUNY professor of law, not talking about those two conflicts, but talking about a huge conflict, and that is, in my view, the Mayor Mamdani in New York. Jeff, should we get used to saying that? Jeff is a CUNY professor of law. Should we get used to saying
forbid,
it?
Brian.
Is it going to happen?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm very encouraged by the poll you just mentioned, which says 44 to 40 in favor of Mamdani in a two-way race. Look at the margin of people, though. Look at the number of votes that are still out there. I find that very interesting. If you look back to the last time Sliwa ran, he only got 27% of the vote against Eric Adams, but he's only getting 12 now. So where are those 15 other percent of Republicans? They're sitting it out because they don't like that he's running. So I think there's actually a lot of vote out there for Cuomo, who you and I have been discussing for a long time. Neither one of us thinks he's exactly the most qualified and best guy for this job. But we all now are in DEFCON 1, I think, and trying to avoid a disaster that Mamdani would no doubt be. So that is encouraging to me.
Yeah, all right, so here's the story. He's got so many forces working for him, including left-wing academics, including the one place you work at. They say that there's a few professors who are using their college email, the email, to try to recruit voters and raise money for Mamdani. Can you expand on that?
Violates New York City law, violates New York State law, violates COLIG, which is the Commission on Ethics and Lobbying in Government. These people are not just union delegates or union members. There was an article in the Post the other day by Rich Calder, which exposed this story. They're union leaders, a chapter chair and a chapter vice chair. These are union heads, leaders at campuses who are sending out emails using government taxpayer email systems to promote Mamdani, which is illegal. They should be investigated by COLIG, this commission. They should be at least fined, and this actually could be a misdemeanor, and they could serve prison time for doing this. But this is not in the least bit surprising. Even a Democratic councilman came out the other day and said, I think it was Robert Holden, came out the other day and said he's not surprised by this. This is a Democrat. He said the party's become so radicalized, and the unions specifically are so radicalized, that he saw this happening and it has to change. And he actually used the word clean house, that the Democrats need to clean house with these union representatives.
Oh, by the way, most unions are against illegal immigrants because they're taking a lot of their jobs and driving the price of wages down. That's why so many went to Trump. So as you pick them up and you straighten out these businesses and try to enforce E-Verify, it actually helps the American worker. So that's something to think about when it comes to unions. But when it comes to the teachers union, they're off the charts bad. If you want to get an idea of why New Yorkers are voting for Mamdani, let's take a listen. Cut 23.
Do you know who you're voting for?
I'm going to vote for Mamdani.
Why?
Because Cuomo is a fascist. Mamdani, honestly, I don't know if he's got good ideas. I don't think a lot of ideas are going to work, but he's got optimism.
It's everything they're not. And he has a lot of good talking points. And yeah, we just need, we don't need the same status quo thing.
So he's got talking points. His ideas aren't going to work, but I'm going to vote for him. I mean, how scary is that?
Yeah, and somebody taught him, I really wonder who it was, to smile all the time. Never stop smiling. You notice he's always smiling. And because he wants to come off as this likable, casual guy you can talk to. And, the master of this of all time was Obama. His policies were horrible, but he was the kind of guy you wanted to hang out with. I know a lot of Republicans that said that to me even, that he's the kind of president. So Mamdani is trying to get away with avoiding his policies, because you see, he's actually not talking about his policies. He's running away right now from his policies. He's trying to make himself seem like the likable candidate and avoid. You saw with Martha McCallum, he avoided answering all of her questions, which was so on point. And he's trying to run away from that. Also,
Rosanna Scotto, too, on Channel 5. He doesn't have any answers, won't apologize to cops. Then all of a sudden, the next day, he apologizes to cops.
Right.
So he says, I'm not really going to get rid of the gifted program. Just in kindergarten, I'm getting rid of it. Well, that's not true. And you'd also know the charter schools he's going to take aim at because he sold his soul to the teachers unions, and he probably believes it. It's why Democratic leadership won't endorse him. Listen to this. Schumer, Gillibrand, Keith Jeffries, they don't want to answer. To Swazi's credit, Laura Gillens, these are New York politicians, they both said, we're out. So show some guts and be out. But listen to Jeffries again yesterday, cut 24.
Well, as I've indicated, I expect to have a conversation with him at some point this week in advance of early voting, which begins next weekend in New York City. And we'll certainly have more to say about the mayor's race and about our Democratic nominee prior to early voting beginning.
So he's not saying, hey, Cuomo's my friend. He's still having conversations. They had good conversations a month ago. And they're having conversations last week. And they're going to have another conversation this week. Jeff, what's the big deal? Just support the guy. What is the fallout?
Yeah, well, Kathy Hochul endorsed him. And I think that's going to come back to haunt her, whether he wins or not. Why are they scared? Why is Schumer scared? Schumer is a disgrace. Schumer is afraid of his own shadow. He's obviously afraid of AOC primarying him, which she's going to do anyway. His career is done. Schumer's not winning another Senate race. So that's why he's not doing it. He wants to see, Schumer has always been about Schumer. It's always ever been about winning races. All he cares about. Hochul, I think, made a huge miscalculation because Mamdani is going to do things that directly conflict with the interests of New York State. And Andrew Cuomo, for all his faults, he is fully aware of that. He knows that better than he bumped heads plenty of times with Bill de Blasio. And usually between de Blasio and Cuomo was the much more level-headed person, which is about the nicest thing I could say about him. And I think Hochul's putting herself in a really strange position because she's, for example, Israel. She's come out very strongly in support of Israel. And now she's going to have a mayor who not only said he's going to get rid of Mayor Adams' executive order that does not allow BDS in New York City, he said he wants to put in place an executive order to support boycotting Israel. The opposite.
Yeah.
So what's she going to say about that?
So
very hard.
Right. It's absolutely. So in terms of what Democrats are fearing, Sarah Isgur, who's become a critic of Trump, who used to work for Trump, said this, cut 25.
They are terrified that this guy is going to be an anchor on the party heading into the midterms. That the second he gets into office, he moves to the far left, and that he is the poster child for Republicans, that the midterms don't become a referendum on Trump, that they become a referendum on the mayor of New York, a Democratic socialist who then becomes the face of the Democratic Party, the message of the Democratic Party, because they haven't had anyone else except Joe Biden.
Right. And on top of that, the other person that they could have is AOC, also a socialist leftist, or Crockett, also a socialist leftist incompetent, who just is a flamethrower. So that'll be the face of the party. I don't know who else. Governor Beshear, I don't know. Does he look like the face of the party? They'd love it, but he doesn't stand up and do anything. Governor Shapiro has a speech once in a while, Wes Moore, I don't know. These other ones get the heat, get the interest.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we know yet who it could very well be AOC. I have no idea who right now they don't really have a face of the party. But historically, if you look at the mayors of New York, there's a long and rich history of mayors not necessarily doing very well for many decades, but running for president. Obviously, we know de Blasio failed miserably in his bid. Giuliani was doing well for a while back in the Hillary Clinton
that Florida
years when
strategy.
he was running for president.
All right, so real quick, on education, this is deadline day for colleges to sign on to President Trump's preferential funding deal. The deadline is today. It's going to be a contact for higher education to agree to suppress campus criticism of conservatives in their not suppress. I think it's open a line of credit. This is a biased reporting of conservatives and abandon DEI efforts in exchange for preferential treatment in federal funding. People that are against it, USC, Penn, Brown, MIT, have rejected the proposal. So we'll see where this goes. Because there's no outside guys like you, Jeff, in these cities, there's almost no conservative presence among the faculty, and anti-Israel, anti-Semitism raging. The president's trying to tackle all this at once. What percentage of universities will be compliant on this, do you think, off the top of your head? And how many in New York?
Boy, that's a tough question, but I think what the clip you played from Katie Porter a few minutes ago is instructive. When she was asked, do you need the 40%, even in California, of Republicans, the Trump voters? And I think universities are at least starting to realize that a huge percentage, it may not be the majority, but it might be 30, 40%, even in New York City, are lean conservative. And I can tell you that in the years that I've been doing this, Brian, more and more people are being comfortable for the first time coming forward and saying,
Really?
These people are, yeah.
So, Jeff, how many people at CUNY, for example, are conservative? How many professors, teachers?
Yeah, I will have to tell you, this is something that shocks me, because I would have agreed with the public polling we've seen over the years that like 10% is conservative. I don't think that's true. I think it's probably closer to what New York City's actual vote is in general elections. I think it's closer to 35-40%.
Good. I love to see it with the curriculum and in the schools, because City College is basically a you with a bulwark, trying to keep some balance there. Jeff, thanks so much. Appreciate it. So thanks for telling us. And of course, the original story is CUNY professors using their email on campus to raise money and raise awareness for Zohran Mamdani against the law.